genevemonde.ch.
When I retired from my advertising public relations days, by luck, I happened to hear Mrs. Ogata speak about the UNHCR, which I didn't know. As a matter of fact, Geneva is divided into little pockets. You have the United Nations pocket, you have the ambassadorial pocket, you have the big firms pocket, you have all kinds of things. So I was busy with corporations. And I didn't know UNHCR. Anyway, I heard her speak, and I said, that's what I want to do. Because I had, even though I could keep myself in pins and happy with my retirement from the ad agency, I decided that I have to do something. Yeah. And listening to Ogata was the trick. And then I think I mentioned to you once before that serendipity moved in and she sat next to me at a dinner. And I said, I wanted to talk to you. And she said, well, here you are, talk.
I'm listening.
And what is it you wanted to tell me? I said, I'm looking for employment that will use my brain. I'm not worried about an income. I need something that'll keep me busy. And she said, you can become 50% of private sector fundraising. And I said, 50%? What, you have one more person? Yes, one other and you. We don't have private sector fundraising here. All our money comes from governments. She asked about my background, of course. In detail, and I told her, and she said, I think you'd be very good at this because you know firms, you know how to talk to people, you know how to get to a CEO and so forth and so on. And I said, yes. She said, okay, Thursday, can you start on Monday? I said, yes. I want to do this bénévole. I would like to do things, if possible, with other people, of course, but basically on my own. And I started, and the first thing I did, I went to the UN regional office headquarters that were here in Geneva. So Central Africa was here in Geneva, Asia was in Geneva, it was all in Geneva. And I had to look for projects that a corporation, for example, or wealthy people could support. And with some trouble, I found them. And on the way out the door, it was like all these world regions got together and said, Marshall's coming in to ask about projects. Let's all tell him about sport. It wasn't quite that way, but it seemed that way. And as I was leaving each regional office over a period of 2 weeks, they said, get us some money for sport. I said, how do you mean get your money for sport? For kids, you mean? Yes, for children. Well, I said, children use sport all the time. What do you need the money for? She asked, but it's totally unorganized. Of course, kids will play naturally. Playing is a natural occupation for children. And they do that. But I need some money to put sports into some kind of an organized fashion so that you'd have little ones, middle, 10 years old, 12 years old, and so on, all together. So I said, yes, okay. So I said, the first thing I have to do is I have to look for who can help me with sports material. And Geneva is very fortunate because you're at the head of the lake, and if you go down the lake toward Montreux, you'll find at least 10 to 15 sports federations. And I went to visit them with a telephone call, of course. And they welcomed me. I was sort of knocked over. I don't know why. Like they had been waiting. And it was true. They probably wondered, why don't the groups that help children come in here and ask us for help? Well, okay, I'm glad to oblige. I asked them. And I got sports equipment and money. I never had a no. And it wasn't my selling, it was they were ready. This was in end of 93, 94. And I went to the different camps to help write programs for the kids. And then in 94, one day, Mrs. Ogata comes to my office. This was in the old building where the World Trade Center is now, along the lake. We were somewhat smaller then. We could fit into half that building. Mm-hmm. She said, I have an invitation from the Olympic Committee to go see them. Mr. Samaranch, who was then the president of the Olympic Committee, and I'm going to see him tomorrow. What do you want me to tell him? Tell him we need them. She said I would do that anyway. And she came back at about noon from an early morning meeting in Lausanne. And she said, Mr. Marshall, here's a document, one-page document that both of them signed. Couldn't have been more than 100 words. And it basically said, we both have the same goals. Your goal is through life-saving work to help refugees. Our goal, if we have it, and I look at it, said Samaranch, from your point of view, we want to give kids sport. And if you need help, you come back to me. So she came to my desk. She said, go see them. See, it says the last line said, we will cooperate. She said, call them up. And I said, well, you just got back. Whom do I call? She said, I don't know. The only one I saw was the president of the Olympic Committee. Well, I said, I can't really call him. And this was one of these moments when you say to yourself, well, what does a intelligent telephone receptionist do? She didn't have a number for me to call. She knew the president's office, but that's not what I wanted. So I called their switchboard, and I said, you may remember earlier this morning, it was now like 1 o'clock, early this morning, the head of the UN Refugee Agency came to visit Samaranch. Oh, yes, I remember. She said, now she wrote a document with Samaranch saying that we would cooperate. I'm looking for someone to speak to at the Olympic Committee so we could cooperate. There's a dead silence at the other end. She said, Mr. Marshall, I've just thought, I have somebody for you. We have the head of the group that works with international organizations, be they charities or be they other people from the United Nations, but there's a man there who heads that, and he's a refugee. He was an Ethiopian refugee. She said, I'll switch you. He said, Mr. Marshall, it's now 1:30. Can you be here at 3 o'clock? I said, when? What day? Today! Let's not waste time.
That's simple.
That's simple.
Yeah.
He asked me where we had projects running and what would I like. I told him about a project I was working on in Kenya, near the South Sudanese border, at a camp. It needed a lot of help. You would think in a camp they'd have a lot of playing field space. They had space, but it was full of boulders. If you tripped on a boulder, you were hurt. Mm-hmm. It had to be cleaned up. So I said, we have a project that will take bulldozers and workers to clean the place, earth-moving equipment, and then we can get into the sport there.